Make sure you download my free technique program. It's a program that identifies what is holding you back from reaching speed. Well, personality is also a huge thing if you are going to make it work with other musicians, because obviously some of the people who gets a lot of work either in the studio or live or whatever, there's no doubt that they are also working a lot because they're easy to work with. I know, of course, also because I've been hiring musicians for the last 25 years for my own stuff. And the people that I keep going back to is obviously also, other than great musicians, but they are obviously also the people that I find it's easy to work with. There's some people there's some people that just rub you the wrong way, and where it feels like, like two poles. I don't know what it's called in English, but where they just go the different. It's just some relationships that just doesn't work, and that's fair enough. But you can also do a lot yourself to make it work. So if your ego isn't too much in the way, actually I read something that I keep reminding myself in many situations that I think a lot of people could use also in these situations like this, if you want to work as a studio musician or live musician, whatever. But as long as you have to work with other people, and the quote is something like, think about what's right instead of who's right. That's really something that you can use a lot here. So for example, if you're working with some people, and somebody tells you something, then immediately your ego will kind of interfere, if it's a person that you may not be working that great with. But then if you mentally, and I know this is tough because it takes time for the brain to first you experience that, shut the fuck up, or whatever. But then if you take a little time out, and hopefully you don't respond and stop yourself from saying shut the fuck up, and hopefully you'll just get to react mentally first, so you can think, is my problem because it's him, who's right, or what's right? Is what he's saying actually right, or do I have a problem with him because it's this guy who's saying it? So if you can use this in these situations, sometimes you can work with some people that you wouldn't beforehand. And I know this also from, unfortunately, bitter experience. It's many years ago, thank God. But I know that if it was today, of course you live and learn, but if it was today, I'm sure that some of the situations that I've been through also could have been avoided if I made use of this thing. So hopefully this is something that you can make use of also in the future. Of course you shouldn't put yourself in situations that you don't enjoy, that's for sure. But sometimes you can make a situation great if you can make use of this little mantra, and just make a situation. For example, if you're hired to do something and you kind of don't see that much eye to eye with the guy who hired you, but the situation or the project is amazing. If that's the case, then this is just a fantastic thing that you can say to yourself, if instead of putting yourself into all kinds of discussions that isn't necessary just because of your ego gets in the way and his or her. So that's a great thing to remember. Another thing I just want to just briefly just touch upon is also something that I experienced myself, because I'm not a type of guy who throws the guitar around on the stage. I'm pretty static when I stand on stage, but I just experienced that what people gravitate to or resonate with is a person who has contact with the audience. And then sometimes you don't have to, you probably don't have to, impress people all the time with your chops. Sometimes you can say, you know what, maybe 50 to 70% or 75% of what you're doing, people will not, they won't pick up on it. So instead of trying to impress all the time, maybe cut back a little bit on that and just say, okay, so here's my rip their faces off point, which is just maybe 5-10%, and then the remaining time you can communicate with the audience, and people will come back to see you, instead of a guy who just rips on the guitar 100% all the time. Because I love that stuff, but a lot of people, they won't I'm not sure how to say this in English, but they don't experience it the same way as you do. So if it's just a billion notes all the time, you have to give people a little bit of a breather. You also know this, or I also know this from when you're listening to an album. If it's 100% full on all the time, a whole album through, you just gotta relax, man. Let me hear something else. And it's just because you can actually love the way that it's played and stuff like that. You can love the genre and all, but sometimes your brain can't process all this material, all these notes all the time. So sometimes you just relax, man. Play some power chords. Sometimes you need to play some power chords to people to relax and have a good time and enjoy the show. So find your spots to communicate with people and pose a little bit if you're, for example, hired for a live job, and don't just all the time try to play insane licks, because most people won't notice it. Maybe a little bit here and there. So it's better to have maybe 5 or 10% of the song being full-on craziness, and then the rest maybe a little more relaxed, where you can communicate with people and have a good time, because people will remember the show if it was an awesome show, and not just 4 guys standing on stage like this, look at their instruments just going insane. I enjoy this style, but I also know that I would have probably remember the show more if there was kind of a good atmosphere and stuff, and people were having a good time, and then they would also find some time to shred. Anyway, if you want to get more into working as a studio musician or a hired gun, check out my new program, Hired Gun, in the link below. Subscribe to my channel.